Well, some pretty big news coming down this week for Rush fans as Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson made a surprise announcement. They'll be touring again in 2026. Should they? Well, we'll talk about that coming up next on Music Meanderings. Hi, I'm Mike Lamneck. It is Music Meanderings. Thanks for joining us today. Now, won't you take the time to please like the video, comment, we love to hear from you, and subscribe to the channel. Also, hit the bell so you'll be notified of any future videos coming up. And if you would like to donate to the channel, that's always appreciated. You can do that by hitting the Thanks tab there at the bottom. Well, Alex Lifeson and Geddy Lee of Rush announced this week they'll be touring again in 2026. Should they? Well, the obvious answer is absolutely yes. If the guys want to tour again for the first time since 2015 as Rush, they should do so. After all, the plans have been blessed by Neil Peart's family, his widow and daughter. They said that they're in agreement with it, and the band will be honoring him at each performance several times. Certainly, Geddy Lee and Alex Lifeson don't need the money, so that's not the motivation. Now, as they stated in the big announcement, it's just for the fun of playing the music again. And the way the announcement came down was very cool, too. It was at a Rock Hall of Fame interview with some fans in attendance, and the guys were doing a little question-answer session, and one of the fans asked them if they'd be touring again, and Geddy and Alex kind of joked around about it a little bit, and then surprisingly said yes. Not only yes, but that they would be touring again in 2026. This caught the interviewer and the crowd off guard. They were very surprised to hear the announcement come up this way, but indeed the guys will be touring in 2026. Judging from the reaction of the interviewer, I really think this was an unexpected announcement. Now, starting in June 2026, Rush announced 12 dates in 7 cities, and they'll call it the 50-something tour. The guys said they'll do those dates, see how it goes, and kind of go from there. And they simply realized after getting together and playing some of the old songs again, just how much they loved those songs and how much they missed it. You know, more than just bandmates, Lifeson and Lee have been lifetime friends, and they're still the closest of friends and have stayed in constant contact over the past 10 years. Now, the guys have not exactly been sitting idle during that time either. Lee has released several books, including the big, beautiful Book of Bass, 72 stories from the baseball collection of Geddy Lee about his love of baseball, and an autobiography, My Effin' Life. Not only did he release those books, he went on book tours for each of those. Now, Lifeson's been involved with many side projects as well, including 2 albums with his band, Envy of None, which are worth checking out. Now, don't expect them to sound like Rush. They certainly don't, but it's good music nonetheless. Now, together, the two reunited for the 2022 tribute concerts for late Foo Fighters drummer Taylor Hawkins, and also with Primus's Les Claypool at South Park's 25th anniversary show. Now, at that concert, they performed their classic Closer to the Heart. If you take a listen to that performance, it's obvious that Geddy Lee's vocal range is no longer capable of reaching the notes obtained on the original. Nothing wrong with that. You know, the guys are in their 70s. I'm a lifelong fan, followed the band since the very first album. However, I did stop seeing them in concert after 2004's 30th anniversary tour because it had become painfully obvious that Geddy simply couldn't sing those early songs anymore. Now, I'll admit, I have an affinity for Geddy's squeal that was prevalent on those early recordings. Now, it's not everybody's cup of tea, I realize. In fact, I remember reading one review of an early album that compared Geddy's voice to a hamster in a blender. But that high-pitched squealing in tune of the early years is what really attracted me to the band in the beginning. Although they suffered from Led Zeppelin comparisons early on, I never really heard that. I thought it really sounded like nothing else out there. And it was a big part of the soundtrack of my youth. Albums like this, like the first Rush album, still remember the first time I heard that record. Fly By Night, of course, the epic 2112 that my brother owned and I always borrowed without his knowledge. All the World's a Stage. And in my opinion, they never released a finer live record, although they have lots of live albums. Never a finer one than this one. And then you had Farewell to Kings, Permanent Waves, which featured, of course, some of their shorter but still very progressive and intricate compositions. And personally, probably my favorite Rush album, and that is Rush Hemispheres. And I followed them throughout the 80s and 90s as well, buying most of those albums or CDs the day that they came out. Now, as the years and relentless touring went on, Geddy Lee's voice changed, and slowly but surely he was no longer able to sing those early songs without lowering his range. Now, on record, it wasn't that obvious because it happened very gradually, little by little, and he did a fantastic job incorporating his new range into their songs. It's hard to really pinpoint when it happened, but starting in the mid-'80s with releases like Power Windows, Hold Your Fire, and Presto, that subtle vocal change started to occur. Now, Lee was quoted as saying, "It became hard to tour because in order to preserve his voice for that night's concert, he was unable to really speak at all during the day." You might think, why don't Rush do what other aging bands do and just lower the keys of their older songs to fit his range? Well, first of all, I can't see Lee and Lifeson ever compromising to that degree. And furthermore, with the complexity of the compositions, I think it would be really difficult, if not altogether impossible. Now, the big question, as Geddy Lee stated during the announcement, is how do you replace someone that's irreplaceable, namely drummer Neil Peart? Geddy Lee's bass tech introduced the guys to Anika Niles, who was drumming for Jeff Beck's band at the time. They secretly brought Niles to Canada to jam and see how it went. The guy said it was more of just an experiment. Niles' amazing drum skills have been profiled on Rick Beato's YouTube channel and many other videos. Things went well, and the three continue to refine things now for the upcoming tour. Now, it's hard to tell if they'll record new material at this time. As Lifeson and Lee say, they are, just taking it one step at a time. I could definitely see it being a possibility, though. Lifeson says the band's concerts might not be as long as past years, but they will still be at least 2 hours. There will be many times during the performance that the legacy of Neil Peart will be recognized. Since he passed in 2020 during the COVID pandemic, Lifeson and Lee weren't able to put together a proper tribute, so this will provide that opportunity. Lifeson says they're rehearsing 35 songs currently, and the set list will change from night to night. So while I have no issues with the guys wanting to play again, I also really don't have any desire to see them at this point. I've been blessed to see them 9 times already, and their current shows really couldn't measure up to what I've already experienced. Now, I also have a hard time listening to the older classic material being sung in that lower register, but hey, that's totally a personal thing. However, some fans have never had the opportunity to see the band live before. This will provide them that experience, perhaps one they thought they'd never see. I certainly don't see this as any kind of cash grab. As I said before, that can't be the motivation. I think the guys are genuinely doing this for the fans and just for the fun of it. I get the idea they still want to do what they love doing while they can. I'm more interested in the possibility of the trio creating new music together and what that would sound like. As far as the damaging their legacy question goes, I don't really see that happening. I think the legacy of Rush is pretty well intact at this time, and I just think the guys are too professional to do anything that would put that into jeopardy. So the tickets will be going on sale soon. Are you going? What do you think? Do you want to see Rush with a new drummer touring? Have you seen Rush live before? Go ahead and comment below. And thank you for watching Music Meanderings.